got some breaking news for you. We are now getting word the lawyer for the president, Michael Cohen, has just disclosed in court that the client who had requested to remain unnamed was Sean Hannity of Fox News. This explosive information, as we now know, porn star Stormy Daniels, she is sitting in that very same courtroom, as is Michael Cohen, the man who paid her $130,000 to keep her mouth shut about that alleged affair with the president. Cohen asking on behalf of the president to get the first look at what the FBI swept up in that
Michael
massive
Cohen's
raid
attorneys
last week.
tried every which way not to release this name. They one point claiming it was embarrassing, another point saying that it was privileged information, and the judge each time basically shot them down. The media here, the New York Times, us, CNN, other folks, we had our lawyer get up and argue, and the judge agreed that this name should not remain sealed, that it was a name that needed to get out, that just the mere fact that you represent someone, a client, does not make it privileged information. And in stunning fashion, she ordered Michael Cohen's attorney to say the name in court. He at one point offered to put it in an envelope and give it to her. He wanted it to remain sealed. She said, "No, I'm ordering you to release the name." And he stood up and he said the name, Sean Hannity. And there was obviously a lot of reaction from people in the courtroom. Really, most of the people in the courtroom is press. There are some spectators, obviously Stormy Daniels sitting in the back of the courtroom next to her attorney, Michael Avenatti. But I could tell you, certainly that name shocked everyone. Several of us from the media got up, walked out to just get out here and try and report this information. So there's this whole issue about how much of this material is privileged. Again, the prosecutors, the judge, seemingly frustrated that Michael Cohen can't give them any number, the number of documents perhaps that may contain privileged information that could be affected by privilege. At one point, the judge asked the prosecutors, "Okay, so how much material do you have here?" And he gave us a window into it. He said he couldn't be very specific because some of it they have not been able to go through. But what we've learned is that the FBI recovered 10 boxes that they removed in total from the 3 locations that they searched. We also learned that there are hard drive devices that they imaged from some of the locations. So essentially, they didn't even take those hard drives. They just basically copied them. Whatever was on there, they then put it on their hard drives, and also other electronic devices. And then, a couple of more details about the case, Brooke, in that they're saying, the prosecutors, is that this does not center around Michael Cohen's legal work, that the investigation here centers around his personal dealings, his business dealings, and his financial dealings, as an argument as to why this whole notion of privilege should not apply. Really, in the end, Brooke, what's happening here is this emergency relief that Michael Cohen has filed is slowly backfiring on him, because now everything that they did not want to do, certainly releasing Sean Hannity's name, has happened.
Yep. Shimon, let's get you back in that courtroom. Thank you so very much. Shimon Prokopez in Manhattan. There's a list of clients of Michael Cohen's. We've known about 2 of them. There was this third unnamed client, which in the last couple of minutes has now been announced out loud to the courtroom as Fox News host Sean Hannity. Here's the new development. Hannity has just addressed this on his radio show within the last couple of minutes. Let's listen.
So I've known Michael a long, long time. And let me be very clear to the media. Michael never represented me in any matter. I never retained him in the traditional sense as retaining a lawyer. I never received an invoice from Michael. I never paid legal fees to Michael. But I have occasionally had brief discussions with him about legal questions about which I wanted his input and perspective. And I assume that those conversations were attorney-client confidential. And the other thing I will need to point out to the media that is apparently going insane over this, not one of any issue I ever dealt with Michael Cohen on ever involved a matter between me and any third party.
All right, so Daniel Goldman has just been seated. He joins our chorus of smart voices, former federal prosecutor, former assistant U.S. attorney. So here's my question. If this is so, in the words of, Sean Hannity, kind of no big deal, laissez-faire, I didn't pay him any money, I called him up for advice, why were they so funny about disclosing his name?
Well, I can understand why they were funny about disclosing his name, because Hannity probably didn't want to be revealed that he was the client, and it's now turning into a whole sideshow circus. But what's interesting about what he said is that he's paid him no money, he has no retainer agreement, he's asked him a few legal questions. When you have an attorney-client relationship, that is a formalized relationship where the attorney is giving you legal advice about a particular matter. He said he never discussed a particular matter with him. So it's one thing if he's just asking him some questions, but for Sean Hannity to be one of 3 clients of Michael Cohen's, that Michael Cohen couldn't even go in and say, you know, he's not a current client. He had to announce to the court that he's a current client. That means that there is an ongoing attorney-client relationship from Michael Cohen's perspective, which would lead me to believe that there is probably more to that relationship than what Sean Hannity is saying. Otherwise, he wouldn't have announced it.
Because the next thought is, all right, of all the lawyers in all of Manhattan, then why get advice from Michael Cohen?
Brooke, I reached out to Sean to ask him what he thought about this and if he had any response. He just texted me back. He's doing his radio show. And he says, and I'm not sure if this is part of what he's already put out, but he said, Michael Cohen has never represented me in any matter. I never retained him, received any invoice, or paid legal fees. I've occasionally had brief discussions with him about legal questions about which I wanted his input and perspective. I assume the conversations were confidential, but to be absolutely clear, they never involved any matter between me and a third party.
Okay,
so he's put that out, but that is
No.
clearly what he's
No, and that's an important point, I think, to hit on. If I can just come back to you, the fact that there wasn't a third party, right, which has been pointed out as part of the MO with some of these clients. And Cohen is that there's a man, there's an NDA, there's a woman, Daniel. And so the fact that there wasn't a third party tells you what?
Well, look, everybody jumps to that point. You know, the other 2 clients are Donald Trump, for whom Michael Cohen negotiated an NDA with Stormy Daniels, and Elliot Broidy, for whom Michael Cohen negotiated an NDA with a Playboy Playmate. So the obvious and natural assumption that people would jump to is that Michael Cohen negotiated an NDA for Sean Hannity. So by him saying that it had nothing to do with him and a third party, he's trying to get out in front of that and quell the rumblings about that as the reason why. But it's something is not adding up here, that Michael Cohen's lawyers would feel compelled to announce in open court that Sean Hannity
Well, it was the
is
judge. If you missed this,
Right.
It was the judge. Initially, they wanted to put his name in an envelope and keep it quiet, and that judge said no, 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 and made them say it out
but
loud.
The easier thing would have for him to say, I have 2 clients. The point is that he feels like he needs to say that Sean Hannity, whether he announced his name or not, is an actual ongoing client for Michael Cohen, whereas Sean Hannity is saying he doesn't represent me in any matter. So there's something inconsistent about those two.
Can you, hang on, can you text Sean Hannity back? And can you ask him, isn't it a conflict of interest when he goes on television every single night talking all about, railing about Trump, that he is a client of Michael Cohen's? I'm just saying.
No, I will, and I agree. I think if they did have some sort of client and attorney relationship, I think for the sake of, as a journalist or a person that hosts a primetime
on a news channel,
it should be disclosed. But I do believe him when he was emphatic with the fact that they haven't exchanged money, there isn't a legal contract. But to your point, why would Michael Cohen go to the point to say this is one of my clients?
Alice got the last word.
Privilege.
I'm out of time. Thank you all so much.